And a very good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Saturday, the 3rd of October, coming up for 6 p.m. This is Christopher Duigan coming to you in our in-concert session on Saturday evenings. Saturday evening is our in-concert program. And tonight is a very special evening. We are inviting you to join us. We'll be starting our program, our concert proper, at 6 p.m. in just under 10 minutes. And it's a beautiful evening of mist and rain. It is cold, cold, cold. I'm sure you're all snuggled up at home, hopefully by the fire or by a heater, wherever you are. And we invite you to grab yourself something to refresh yourself, to keep yourself beveraged for the next while from 6 p.m. Because this evening we have another in-concert session, a beautiful program of music. But this evening we have something extraordinarily special. Because, as I was saying the other day, we are, I think, on live stream number 54. 54 hours of live streaming, and thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking with us and for sticking with me, because you have had 54 hours of me non-stop for the past 6 months. And tonight we have something special because we have a guest artist. This evening I'm enjoyed by the amazing KZN based, and from KZN, I was always proud to say that, to say he's South African, but also from this part of the world, Aristide Duplessis, who's going to be joining me here on the cello. And Aristide, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Chris, and how are you?
No, I'm fantastic. So lovely to have you here. Aristide and I have got a really beautiful program of music. We're playing some of the most celebrated, famous, most gorgeous, gorgeous music that is going to keep you very warm your heart. The cello is an incredible instrument, and as you're here in the hands of Aristide, who is an absolute master soloist, concert soloist, he has been recognized as South Africa's premier cellist. Yeah, no, it wasn't writing. It wasn't writing. It was put in writing after a concert with the orchestra in Johannesburg. The newspaper critic who has never had very nice things to say about me, to be honest. It's called Aristide, said, is this South Africa's preeminent, is that the right word? Preeminent cellist?
That is the word he used, yes.
And I think he's right, because you will hear Aristide is simply incredible. Aristide is from Durban originally. He studied in Cape Town at the University of College, like many of us, University College of Music, like many of us have, and then also spent some time on an Oppenheimer scholarship.
Yes.
Oppenheimer, thank goodness for the Oppenheimers.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Where would we be without them supporting music for so many years? And he went to study in Switzerland, in Zurich, and you were there for how long?
I was, nearly 3 years,
3
basically.
Years, fantastic, yes. Yeah. And you studied with?
I studied with principal cellist of the Tonhalle Orchestra, who's just left the orchestra actually to be a full-time professor, Thomas Grossenbacher. He was for many years the assistant of David Geringas, who's one of the most prominent cello teachers in Europe, sort of in the 70s, 80s and 90s. And so it was a very strong sort of combination of the German school and a bit of the Russian school, and basically his own thing. But we had to, it was one hell of a lot of work, but I'm still learning today from it. That's a real teacher. He plants something in your brain and off you go.
It's incredible. And it's amazing. I also had the great opportunity of studying overseas, and it's such an incredible experience to be in a different environment and to really see the incredible workings of the European music industry, the number of musicians and the standard, the absolute focus and complete dedication that the teachers and the students have. It's a very inspiring experience that one, I'm sure, has enriched us both greatly.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you're now part of the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestra. You're co-principal cellist.
Yes, when I returned in 2015, there was a job opening. Okay. I was very fortunate. There was a job opening right after my studies.
That's good timing.
Yeah, then I was very fortunate. At the end of it, I was thinking, okay, it's all nice. I've been studying and doing all these things and being a little high flyer, but where's the job now?
Yeah.
And it's difficult. It's very difficult, especially, I think, in South Africa, if you don't have a job, because you have to build up your own teaching, your own concerts, your own, but orchestra musicians in a certain sense are lucky that we can play
have a basis,
for a living and get a salary.
Have a basis to work from.
Yes.
And so as the co-principal, you sit next to your principal cellist, who was also one of your teachers and a very good friend of mine as well, and also someone who's known to many of my audiences, Boris Kerimov.
Yes.
He's your pal at the desk. You sit next to him every day.
Yes.
What is it like working with your previous teacher like that?
It's quite interesting because I studied with Boris for my last 2 years of high school, and it was a wonderful time. He sort of woke me up in many ways. You know, the first thing he said to me after a couple of lessons, after getting to know my playing and so on, he said, I think you love your cello so much that you don't want to harm it when you play. And so Boris was really inspirational and really bringing everything out of me musically, really pushing my limits, stretching me. And we focused so much on music and not even phrasing or basic things like that, but the mood, the characterization of the atmosphere. And along with that, my technique just improved so much because I had to be flexible to do these things.
Sure.
So it was a wonderful awakening.
Yeah.
And then I went and studied for 7 years, I suppose. And coming back to Boris, it was very interesting. You know, many people say this, you know, you can't remember things that your teacher taught you, but many of the things you say when you're teaching, then you all of a sudden remember, okay, they're from your teacher. They're sort of ingrained into me.
Sure. I remember seeing this clip. Leonard Bernstein talks about this. He says there's this American expression, that'll learn you.
That'll learn you.
That'll learn you. And it's true. I was actually teaching this morning on a masterclass, and you often find yourself when you teaching and you looking at someone else's playing and you're trying to get to the kind of kernel of what you're trying to say, you actually hear yourself talking back because you learn so much about trying to analyze things and how things really work and how they can work or how they don't work sometimes. That's always the frustrating thing when things don't work and you don't know how to fix it.
And you know, there's a cellist who was in Durban for many years. She's in Cape Town now, Sarah Akers. Did you ever meet Sarah Akers? You know Sarah.
Sarah's watching these programs.
Oh, well, great.
Big shout out to Sarah. Sarah, when I was a first year student, I think in Durban, and then I knew Sarah when I was in Cape Town. We spent a lot of time together.
Oh,
she had
wonderful.
a flat just down the road from me, and we used to play there. We played with her. Sarah at Lucia, do you remember Lucia?
Lucia, yes.
Scott, and
what I wanted to say about Sarah is that, you know, I wanted to get pupils as soon as I went to UCT to get, you know, my own income and while I was a student, and we just got talking about teaching, and you know, I've always been interested in schooling and pedagogy, how to do things and all of that. And she said to me, you know, I was this young little whippersnapper, but she said to me, you know, you'll start teaching, but you know, in 10 years, so basically after teaching for 10 years, you write off the first 10 years and the rest, you know, then you sort of start knowing what's going on from there. And I never really believed it, but actually now I really do.
It is. It's true. It's true. No, I hear you.
Every student is different. That's the approach you have to have.
Yeah. No, I hear, and I think that's. I mean, the weird thing. Interesting. I actually don't teach, as you know, at all. So it's quite strange, and it's interesting you say that because I know exactly what you mean. Because when I'm teaching, like on a masterclass position, I'm just there for a short while, for 30, 40 minutes, and then I'm gone. And it's that actual commitment of working with a student over a long term that I think I'm so scared of and I'm so terrified of, because I don't really know what I'm doing. And this is something that I hear a lot about, and I'm quite not passionate about it, but I feel quite strongly about it. I think that's what the thing is that there's so many situations where people are teachers and they actually don't really know how to teach very well. I find in music that it's a very difficult thing. You know, you really have to study teaching to be a good teacher. It doesn't just happen. Just because you can play an instrument doesn't mean that you can get someone else to do it.
It's educating.
It's about being educating. You have to really know.
Imparting knowledge. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. That's you know, training. But educating is teaching somebody how to develop ideas from what you've shown them.
And when you're dealing with young musicians, you're dealing with very fragile, often not fragile, but very not volatile, but pliable people. You know, when you're dealing with the youth, always it's a very pliable place to be.
Yes,
and
but
it's
their
a great
curiosity is
responsibility.
amazing.
Yeah. I think that's what Terra was. Oh, it's gone 6 o'clock. We need to play some music. So, It's gone 6. Welcome, everybody. This is Piano Hour with myself, Christopher Duigan, on the 3rd of October, and with Aristide Duplessis, who's joining us this evening. And we're going to have a magnificent program of cello and piano music. And we are going to start off with one of the, well, in fact, probably the most well-known celebrated cello melody ever written, the Swan, from the Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Säens. It's a beautiful piece of music. No matter how many times you've played it, it is magical.
Yes. Well, I mean, there are several times when I was younger where it wasn't so beautiful when I played it, but, you know, a lot of us sort of gravitate to, let's say, some people like to say more serious composers than Saint-Säens, but this is actually, Boris once said to me, yes, you know, people think Saint-Säens is a lot of fun and games, and it's kind of like a Mozart in the Romantic era, but the Swan is such a masterpiece, actually. A real masterpiece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find so much of Saint-Säens' music, the clarinet sonata, the trios, they have incredible weight, incredible passion. I think sometimes more than actually many other composers. The interesting story I find about this, the Saint-Säens composed this Carnival of the Animals. It's a very well-known selection of music, but it's written for such an unusual combination in its original sense. It's often played with orchestra, but it was actually played originally for string quartet, so just 4 musicians, not a full string section, 2 pianos, 1 double bass, a xylophone and glockenspiel, 1 clarinet and 1 flute, which is a rather unusual group of people. I mean, 2 pianos and a string quartet. That's a rather odd. And the reason that this actually happened was that Saint-Säens wrote this as a private entertainment for his friends. They decided, let's get together and have some fun, and these were the instruments that the group of friends involved were actually playing. So that's why it's a rather unusual connection of just 1 clarinet and a xylophone. And then he gave each of these people a solo item to show off their skill and show off the instrument, and he wrote this incredible music for the Swan, for the cello solo, the elephant for the double bass, and the flute gets the birds, and the xylophone gets the fossils, paleontological entity, I guess. So we're going to play for you the Swan from Saint-Säens' Carnival of the Animals. Nicely done. Well done, Aristide. Beautiful.
Thank you, Chris.
Aristide and I have I've had the great privilege, I should say, of working with Aristide for a number of years now. We've been doing a number of concerts and explored various sections of the cello repertoire, the standard repertoire, as well as some more fresh and unusual parts of it. And this next piece of music is going to combine a bit of both of those, because it's the famous Ave Maria by J.S. Bach, Charles Gounoud. And just to repeat this, Bach writes the accompaniment in about the accompaniment yards. Sorry, Bach. He wrote what he wrote.
Gounoud saw it as an accompaniment.
Yeah, exactly. He wrote his contribution. He wrote his prelude in C in about 1700 and something. And then Charles Gounoud, who was the French Romantic composer in about 1850, added the melody on top, which is what Aristide's going to play. But we like to, keep things fresh, and we kind of like to do our own thing. So we're going to play it once, and then we're going to repeat it, and then I'm going to improvise and add an extra counter melody on top of that. So it's just kind of a Bach, Gounoud, Duplessis Duigan, a version of Ave Maria. For you, I hope you enjoy this. that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well done. I think that went rather well. So that was our version of Ave Maria. Bach, Gounoud with a little bit of an improvisation from the piano part there as well. Beautifully done.
Yeah,
well done, Aristide.
lovely piece.
Very
Actually,
nice. Very
after
good.
we've just said, oh, it's the accompaniment of Gounoud, and now
Yeah, no, it's such amazing music all
Yes,
around. I
it
mean,
is.
all of it's got such quality.
Yes.
It's so fascinating. I've played, you've played these pieces as well so often, and every time you play it, there's just a magic that it brings you into it. It absorbs you into the music, and you discover new things and a new phrase and a new color, and that's good music. That's just great music. Really profound music there. And we're going to change the mood now. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful selection of cello melodies. This is Saturday evenings in concert with our amazing guest artist, cellist Aristide Duplessis. And we're going to change the color and the mood of the music now a little bit. We're going to play some Faure. You're going to tell us about it.
The Elegy by Faure. Faure, it's quite interesting about Faure. When he wrote sonatas, he often wrote the slow movement first. And then as he progressed, he sort of used that as the heart of the piece and wrote the first movement, maybe second and third and fourth, and so on, depending. So it's suspected that this was probably going to be part of one of his cello sonatas. It's definitely, in my opinion at least, far superior music to both of the cello sonatas that are out there. And it was originally written for cello and piano, and then at the behest of a conductor, a few years later, he orchestrated it. So it's more commonly known nowadays, I think, as Elegy for cello and orchestra. But
Oh, really? Okay.
it's wonderful in this combination too.
It's a very nicely written piano part.
Oh, yeah.
It's got great color and possibility, you know. It's not just, you don't feel like an orchestra that's failing. Often that happens when you're playing an orchestral part. You just feel like you're falling short all the time. But with this, it's very well written for the piano as well. So it really exploits both ends.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pieces of music. I mean, this is a really powerful, so hold on tight. It's a really powerful piece of music. The Faure, the Elegy.
Yeah.
A song of sadness, right? Or a song of
mourning,
sorrow,
a lament.
A lament,
Yes.
yeah. beautiful. Well done.
Yeah.
Great. That was Faure's Elegy, a song of mourning. Great piece of music and beautifully played by Aristide Duplessis. Aristide, tell us about your cello, because I know every string player has a great passion, and I know you have an enormous passion for cellos.
Yes.
You collect cellos like I collect pianos, like lost children that you find and nurse them back to health. But tell us about the cello that you're playing this evening.
Well, the thing about collecting cellos, yes, I sold one of them about at the beginning of the year.
And you felt heartbroken afterwards.
It felt like I had the instrument. I bought it in the middle of last year, and I felt like I had the cello for years, but then I just, I had two wonderful instruments, and I thought, okay, well, I can't, no musician, well, okay, yes. Basically I couldn't afford to. I just thought about it, so I've got a car and all of that, but no, this, they had sort of a similar provenance. This is a French instrument from the 19th century.
Okay.
And it's probably the school of a violin maker known as Jean-Baptiste Villaume.
Okay, Villaume, yeah.
Yeah, this is probably made in his workshop by some of his students and sort of under his supervision. But there's not a single, fingerprint or anything like that of Villaume in this cello.
Oh, really?
One can tell by just what the color kind of used to be, but also
perhaps Barry can you zoom in on the cello at this point? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, beautiful instruments, eh?
Yeah, the choice of wood is very French. It's sort of I think it's known as wild maple, and so on. I don't think the scroll and neck are original. Okay. And it's suspected the top might be later, but thankfully the sound is
great.
Really, really.
But you
good.
make it sound great.
I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yes.
Because it's the same thing with the piano. I mean, the cello can only do what you are able to make it do, but also you have to be able to make it do that to actually make it happen.
And it was, I should give credit where it's due. It was also procured for me, made available to me by a wonderful cellist in our orchestra, who was actually my very first teacher.
Okay.
Kolyo,
yeah, of course, right. Okay.
And his big passion is violins and cellos. He actually even sets them up. I've got a beautiful bridge that Kolyo made for me.
Wow.
I'll show you the back now.
Wow,
we have a nicer camera angle. Look at that. And yes.
So now
I think it was it was in a cupboard for quite a while, that kind of story, and so the varnish got really damaged, so it is re-varnished, but especially on the front there, I don't really like that so much, but sort of been tinkering around, but the sound is good. That's all that matters. Yes.
And also because you spend so much, you practice for hours a day. Have you been practicing a lot during this last 6 months, during the lockdown and everything?
Yes.
You've been writing a book about it.
Wrote two short books, 30 pages each. Some of you watching, I may have sent it to you already. It's just about philosophies of, things that we come up when we practice. Sometimes we hear a recording of ourselves playing and we say, I should have remembered that one little trick I figured out. And this actually comes from another one of my teachers, and I had a masterclass with her teacher, Maria Kliegel. Anne-Marie van der Westhuizen.
Right.
Maria Kliegel. And Maria Kliegel told me after the masterclass, I was just having a discussion with her. She was very generous. This was up in Bloem about 10 years ago. Okay. And she said, when you're practicing something, and this is for all the people at home who are aspiring musicians, and this is really the best advice, is when you're practicing, when you get something right, when something goes really, really, really well, stop. So don't just stop to fix something. You make a mistake, you stop to fix it. Stop when you get something right as well and figure out, what did I do when I got it right? And
write it down.
And the result of that is this 30-page book of all these little tips and everything. Yes. So I've had a very productive 6 months. Yes.
That's great. Oh, that's good to hear. That writing down thing is so important because it can really help us when we get lost. We get lost in the sort of the kind of what's the word? The sort of never-ending journey into something, and then you try to find your way out of it. But my very good friend Gilly Walters, from Wedgwood Nougat, and she's
Yes,
amazing with food. And Gilly's books they're always notated, and she's always writing and rewriting down when things went right, and when she made it, and when it worked, and what her tips were written down, which is really useful because we all work around. Someone said this to me in Cape Town, Shirley Gee. Remember Shirley? Yeah. She said, never carry around things in your head that you can write down in a book or that you can read in a book, which is a good point. Your head can only take, your brain can only take in so much. And so to write all these things down and keep a record of them, so when you come back to them, you're not thinking, what did I use here? It's the same with the recipe. How did I change this? It worked last time and I can't remember why. Whereas if you write it down, it's like, there it is. There we go. That's the fingering I used. Just one thing before we go on about your instruments. So you say it's a 19th century instrument, mid-19th century.
Probably, yes.
Okay. And so the difference is, obviously, I was doing these talks about the piano this week, is that the cello or the violin or cello, these wood instruments, stringed instruments, are the age of the wood and the varnish is what's crucial to give it the sound, because that's how it somehow settles in the skill. But with the piano is a machine. It's a box of 12,000 moving parts. So a mid-19th century piano is not something that I really welcome playing on because it's a lot of 180-year-old moving parts, which is not going to be great. Whereas the cello, it doesn't move. It's the actual resonating box that actually has weathered and worn through.
Yeah.
Right. Also, I just wanted to mention, talking about doing things in the amazing camera work. So this evening, thanks to Barry, who's running the show entirely on his own this evening. Barry's doing all the camera switching and the camera angle. So thanks, Barry. And the sound. Our technical team, other part of the technical team, Kevin Liddell, had to go to Johannesburg this weekend, so Barry is doing the complete show, and I think he's doing a great job of it, because we can see, for the first time, we've actually got a monitor here, so we can see exactly what camera we were looking at. Right, we're going to move on to some amazing music that one of your favorite pieces.
Yes.
What is that?
We're going to play the quite unusual for a cello and piano recital. We're going to play the second movement of the Dvorak Cello Concerto. And how we came to play this was last year. Actually, we played it the first time, I think, on that cello I was talking about that I bought and
that's right. I remember.
sold.
Yeah.
And the reason was we were sort of putting a program together. I can't remember the rest of the program. I just know the Black Swan was there, Villa
That's right, yeah.
A number of other pieces, but we were looking for something slow and beautiful, and I thought, well, what about this Dvorak? Because often with Dvorak, we always hear the famous, if anything is played from the Dvorak Concerto, we always hear and so on, or the last movement and so on, but we never ever hear anything of the slow movement, and it's the complete heart of the piece. It's the heart of the piece, and it's got quotations from beautiful songs about his sister-in-law who he was in love with when he was younger, and it's one of his most deepest personal works ever. This movement in this concerto.
It's very powerful.
And often, when a piano plays an orchestra part, often the piano reductions are rather dull. They have to just play a long note that a wind instrument plays. But this actually works incredibly well on piano.
Well, yeah. The Duigan Philharmonic.
Yes, exactly. I remember in Cape Town, we also had Francois Dutoy. He used to call himself the Rosebank Philharmonic. Rosebank in Cape Town, not Rosebank in Johannesburg.
Francois is a character. He's one of the funniest people I know.
Yeah.
I always crack myself laughing when you
Rosebank Phil. I played a lot with the Rosebank Phil. It was amazing.
Of course.
You can give him a piece.
Of course. No,
you'll play through it. It's, the next day it's like,
Absolutely.
right at the top. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yes. That's Francois. No, for sure.
We've had him jump in twice at the orchestra.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. He has
They
that
phoned him,
ability.
he came the next day and played the Schumann concerto by memory.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
And, well,
he's
that-
got
that
that
piece,
incredible
yes.
facility. Yeah, it's amazing. He plays a concerto like no one else I've ever heard. He has that knack. Francois, I hope you're watching.
Somebody tag him.
Tag him. But he has that knack. There's a particular style. There's a particular sort of about timing and sound and the kind of general weight of the musical picture that you have to be able to fit in. Just to be able to step in with an orchestra of a minimal rehearsal and just make it work. And he's got that.
Yeah,
he's got
he
that
has.
style.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So let's hear you. Which is your favorite cello concerto, by the way? The Dvorak, you think?
Well,
Or do you prefer the Algon?
Dvorak. I'll have to say
Okay.
Dvorak, yes.
Okay.
I have to say Dvorak. Let's not get into that though.
Let's not get into that one. Here we go.
Okay.
So I'm going to be flutes and clarinets and beautiful instruments now. Here we go. Super. Well done, Aristide. Always such a pleasure to play with you. Thank you.
My orchestra.
Yeah, your orchestra, your own personal, private orchestra. How about that? Isn't that amazing music? Gosh, incredible, huh? Just amazing. Dvorak Cello Concerto, the central middle movement.
Yes.
Really, and you mentioned it, you briefly passed over it in the beginning, but you said he quotes a song which he had written, that he was in love with this young woman, and then
at the time that he wrote the song. I vaguely remember, but
and then she died, and then he ended up marrying her sister.
No, I think he married the sister before.
Okay.
And I think, but the theme which I played, I'll just play it in octave. It's quoted, or semi-quoted in the last movements. And it's Last mich allein, that's the name of the song. I need to go and look at it, but yes. That's
very poignant, very beautifully, intensely.
And also another one, so much of the second movement in that there.
Sure.
He's coming down this pentatonic.
It sounds very much like the
Yes, of course, absolutely, yeah.
Do you know what Dvorak we haven't played, which we should do, is Songs Your Mother Taught Me? Should we do it now?
No.
Let's pick a key.
I don't feel.
No, I'm joking. It's a great piece. We must do that. We'll put that in our next program. Hopefully you'll come back and do this again.
Sure, yeah.
So I hope you are enjoying our selection of music this evening and our presentation. This is Christopher Duigan, Saturday the 3rd in our in-concert session, and we have our first guest artist, Aristide Duplessis, who is playing just magnificently. We hope you are enjoying this on our various Facebook pages, Music Revival KZN, the Cape Classic Music Festival, Christopher Duigan Pianist. We should have shared it on your page as well. I didn't think we could have done that live, actually. But you can share it now afterwards.
Yeah.
On your page, because Aristide's got a Aristide Duplessis cellist page on Facebook and a website, and you're very proactive with all your social media. Instagram, yeah, I know.
Hashtag.
Exactly, hashtag cello.
We all know there are lots of
19th century school.
There are lots of sort of cheat hashtags out there. Use the most common word, hashtag music. Okay, you see something like 40 million.
Okay. No, you didn't
hashtag
you didn't share
hashtag cold or hashtag.
You didn't share that nugget with me. Next time. So if you're interested in cello music or string music or more about cellos, because Aristide, as he loves sharing the information about his music and about his cellos and his practicing and his bows and really all incredible things.
Strings and tail pieces and end pins.
Exactly, and cello mutes and silent cellos. Didn't you have a silent cello at one point?
Yes.
When you practice in the flat with neighbours, we talked about that once. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to move on.
I never use it.
Sorry?
I hardly ever use it.
No, well, then you don't need to. That's because you don't need to.
Yeah.
A friend of mine in Durban was in the orchestra in Los Angeles now, and she practiced always high notes.
What did she play?
She played clarinet and practiced the high notes. I think that's part of developing clarinet technique, is you practice the highest notes you can for as long as you can. And so another friend of mine, actually her friend lived on the flat above and said there was this most awful noise used to emanate while they were playing bridge somewhere in Musgrave Road. But it's loud, clarinet playing high notes is loud. It's loud. It goes on for a while. Practicing can be really difficult. We're going to play a piece that Barry, who's running the technical team this evening, who is the entire technical team. Barry, this is his favorite piece of music, so he's always happy for us to practice this at any time. And we're going to play the third movement, the slow movement from Rachmaninov's amazing cello sonata. And it's so interesting because, again, all of the music this evening it's just kind of an outpouring, not only because it's cello music. I mean, a lot of cello music is incredibly intense and passionate and lyrical, but we've chosen a particularly lyrical program and a really just a massive outpouring of emotion in this evening's music. And this is no exception. exception. Rachmaninov had gone through a huge depression. He had composed his first symphony. This was his major first opus that he would present publicly. It was a disaster. The conductor was drunk. The orchestra was under-rehearsed.
You know who the conductor was, apparently? I think I read somewhere the conductor was Glazunov.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I think it's right. So he probably was. He was drunk on often, I think. Exactly. And he didn't know the music very well, and the orchestra didn't like it, and the audience didn't like it. And Rachmaninov sat in the passageway outside after the performance in tears because he knew what a disaster this was going to be. And he went into a huge depression and gave up composing and was really in one of those moments. And then he met a psychiatrist who was also he was interested in hypnotherapy, and a guy by the name of Nicholas Dahl. And I remember this name because he dedicated the second piano concerto, which he wrote that. He wrote the amazing suite for two pianos, which is a really brilliant work, and this cello sonata all at the same time. So this therapy that he went through kind of unlocked his entire creative spirit and energy, gave him confidence to write. He just believed in himself. It just everything flowed. He was working apparently on all three of these pieces at once. Opus 18, 19, and 20, right?
The sonata he wrote at the same time.
Exactly the same time.
Yeah.
They were like all together. So this music.
What was the third piece?
The two piano suite. The second piano suite.
Okay.
Amazing. Also amazing music. And so all of these pieces are just incredibly, beautifully open-hearted and lyrical. And then he writes the cello sonata, and in the third movement, the slow movement, he writes this incredible music, which for many, I think, even including me, is the best, if you can say that, but really one of the most sublime moments of cello and piano writing, because it's such an incredible piano part that he engages the two instruments very, very well. So we would like to play that for you now. This is the third movement from the Rachmaninov cello sonata. Nicely done. Great stuff. Thank you, Barry, for your support this evening and always. That brings us to the end of this evening's program, I think. Aristide, what do you think?
Yes.
It's 5 minutes to 7. I don't think we can really say anything after Rachmaninov. I think it's a moment of moments. And after that music, I think everyone needs an interval and an intermission to restore themselves. And we look forward to welcoming you back on our live streams. We're intending our live streams to keep going. And now that lockdown level 1 is here, it's more viable for us to have guest artists in the program, and this has been a great experience. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you, Aristide, for coming from Durban to joining. That's always lovely to work with you. Always fantastic to play with you. Thank you for playing so beautifully.
Thank you.
And sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you again to Barry for all the technical support and for making this all happen. And thank you to all of you for joining us and for persevering with sitting through with the previous 53 live streams just with me. And now we've got a whole new range of music and a range of possibilities. Aristide's performance has really been exceptional, I think, this evening. Well done to you. Congratulations and everything that you've achieved in your career. And I'm sure you all look forward to seeing Aristide in his future performances. When is your next big major? Do you have anything lined up? Is everything still on hold? Concertos with the orchestra. You played with the orchestra in Johannesburg recently.
And Durban.
And Durban, yeah.
I'm probably going to play a trio concert. I recently formed a string trio with myself and Rita Macheva on violin and Anna Maria, right. Everyone knows just Anna Maria on viola.
Okay.
Beethoven string trios, that's what we're doing, yes.
Very rarely played, very beautiful.
Very rarely played,
very
yes.
beautiful.
Very difficult. But it's a challenge.
Of course. Great. Yes. Great stuff. Well, that brings us to the end of In Concert with Aristide Du Plessis and myself, Christopher Duigan. This is coming from our home studio in Pietermaritzburg on this very chilly Saturday evening. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this wonderful selection of music. Look after yourselves, stay warm, and let's keep the music playing. Don't stop the music. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday when I have another session of piano hour, another variety of music, some popular things, some ragtime, tango, bit of improvisation, and some of my own pieces. Wait, we've left something out.
Have we?
My own piece.
Oh,
wait, sorry, this is not the end of the program. Okay, sorry, there's more. Gosh, I was so overwhelmed by the Rachmaninov. It's such an intense piece of music. I thought, okay, no, we have got more, actually. We have got more, so don't go away. Come back. Aristides, we've got the...
this is for those who thought the concert was at 7
o'clock. Do you need the
o'clock.
music for this, for Himeville?
I have it, yeah.
Can you see it there? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So we're going to play. So when we did a concert recently, Aristide had been listening to my own compositions online on my album Indigo and one of the 4 KZN landscapes, and he said, could we try the piece Himeville, which he really, really liked. It's a composition I wrote that was inspired by the approach into Underberg and Himeville, the beautiful Drakensberg mountains, beautiful part of the world. It just feels like you're at the end of everything there. Everything comes to a halt somehow. It's a very magical place to visit and to be. And I wrote a little piece called Himeville, and Aristide and I are going to play that for you now. Sorry, I forgot about that completely. great stuff. Well
Great.
done. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautifully played. Thank you, Aristide. Thank you for
Thank you.
asking to do that. That was one of my own compositions. Always amazing to hear my own music in someone else's hands.
And I want to do the other three at some point
yeah,
also.
it would be fun.
What keys are the other three in?
The others are in D major, E flat, and C. But we can arrange that.
Good, no,
Easy
good.
keys.
Those
are
are
easy
nice.
keys.
This is in D flat.
Easy
this one.
keys.
Such a different, beautiful. You never hear D flat major on the cello.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. It's a lovely key to play.
It's such a different resonance. I was thinking of transcribing it to D
No, I
major,
think
but
it's
it
got
loses
a- It's got a
its
deep,
darkness.
Yeah, it's got a sort of mellow. D flat major's got a mellowness, a mellow quality. It's interesting that it shouldn't, but it's amazing that keys do have these qualities.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's incredible.
Yeah.
Now that brings us to the end of this evening's program. So thank you for joining us. Lastly, if you are able to support us, obviously these live streams all go out free on various platforms, on our website, YouTube, etc. And if you're able to make a donation or buy a ticket, I always say buy a ticket's always good. If you've enjoyed this and you'd like to see more guest artists on our programs and more of these live streams, please do support us. I think there might even be a little QR code coming up on the screen shortly, where you can take your cell phone and open your camera app and snap at the screen if you're watching. Otherwise, visit our website, musicrevival.co.za, and it will lead you to all the pages there, the page to donate via PayPal if you're international. I know we've got many viewers in Turkey and Mexico and London and York and England who are watching regularly. Hello to all of you out there, Dave and Sue Brown, and to Julie in Turkey and Guillermo in Mexico at the embassy. I know he's always watching regularly. And isn't it amazing? KZN, South African talent, Aristide Duplessis, what a brilliant performance tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And if you'd like to support us in our endeavors, please do pop along to our website and find out more about how you can do that. Thank you again to Barry. Keep well, look after yourselves, stay warm, and see you on Wednesday and next Saturday. Can you improvise an A flat? Give it a go. Nice.